All right, welcome back, guys. New week here, so some more math fun for you. Last week we were solving equations. We solved equations with variables on both sides. We did some with the distributive property, and we also did some with combining like terms. This week, I thought we would focus a little bit on a topic that a lot of people don't like, but does appear a lot, which is solving equations when we have fractions involved. Now, most people do not like dealing with fractions, especially eighth graders from my experience. So I'm going to show you a way today that we can solve these problems and get rid of the fractions to make our lives a lot easier. So I'm going to start with a fairly straightforward example, hopefully. Something like 1/2 x plus 6 is equal to 2, or is equal to 10, excuse me. So 1/2 x plus 6 equals 10. Now, you don't have to do this way, but I think it's going to make your life a little bit easier. When you see a fraction, I want you to figure out where all your fractions are. So I have 1/2, and that's actually my only fraction. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the denominator. That's the number that's in the bottom of our fraction. In this case, we have a 2 here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to take, to start off with, and we're going to multiply every single term here by 2. So we're going to multiply this by 2, we're going to multiply this by 2, and we're going to multiply this 10 over here by 2. And watch what happens when we do that. 2 times 1/2 x. Now 2 times 1/2, you can do that in your calculator. But essentially what's happening is your 2's are going to cross each other out, okay? They're going to reduce out, and you're just going to be left with what's in the denominator, in this case 1x. So 2 times 1/2 is the same as 1x. Now these next two terms are much easier for us. 2 times 6 is 12. 10 times 2 is 20. Now at this point, after I've done that multiplication, notice I've gotten rid of my fraction. So this equation should look really easy to us now. Now I just subtract 12 on both sides. So I'm going to get 1x is equal to 8, and that is going to be my answer here. I could divide by 1, but I'm going to still get x equals 8. All right, let's try another example with this and see how it goes for us. All right, so this time I'm going to say 1/4 x plus 6 equals 1/2 x plus 10. All right, so the first thing I want you to do is take a look at our fractions. In this case, we have 2 of them. We have 1/4 and we have 1/2. And we're going to look at our denominators. Those are the numbers in the bottom, 4 and 2. Now, what we want to do is we want to pick a number to multiply by that both 4 and 2 will go into. So think of any number you want that you can divide 4 and 2 into. Some of you may have thought of 4, because you could put 4 and 2 into 4. Some of you may have thought of 8, because 4 and 2 can go into 8. Some of you may have even said something like 12 or 20. You can multiply by any of those numbers. Generally, I try to keep it small because we are multiplying by those numbers, but completely your option. I'll multiply by 8 here just to show you what happens. So I'm going to multiply every single thing by 8. All right, so I'm going to multiply 8 by 1/4. Okay, use your calculator if you need help with that. You can also hopefully realize that 4 goes into 8 2 times. So this is essentially going to become 2 times 1, or 2x. But if you're not understanding that piece right there, feel free to just do 8 times 1/4 in your calculator. Over here, we have 8 times 6, which is 48. Over here, we're doing 1/2 times 8. Okay, so we're thinking about what half of 8 is, or 2 goes into 8 4 times, and 4 times 1 is going to leave me with 4x. And over here, 10 times 8 is 80. Now, if you look, we have an equation, and there's no more fractions. So our life is a lot easier. And this is exactly what we did last week. We have variables on both sides. I have 2x and I have 4x. So I'm going to subtract 2x on both sides. So I'm going to get 48 is equal to 2x plus 80. I'm going to subtract 80 on both sides. And at this point, I get negative 32 equals 2x. I'm going to write that over here so I got some more room. And my final step, I'm going to divide by that 2. And I get that negative 16 is equal to x. All right, so practice some of these problems here. Try and practice getting rid of those fractions. It will make your life a lot easier when you're doing these problems. All right, let me know if you have questions, and we will probably work on this for a couple days. So don't get discouraged if you're struggling a little bit on this today.